Welcome to part three. This is where we traveled to Munich. Covered Dachau in the last video, and then we went to Eagle's Nest in the Bavarian Alps. And of course, here's the obligatory breakfast picture. Solid black bread, brie cheese, lots of fruit, poached eggs. Man, it was good. Filming along as we travel through the Bavarian Alps, you can see that the architecture has begun to change to the Alpine style, even the architecture of the churches as well. This is right outside Berchtesgaden in Germany, and some more pictures coming up here. Pastoral setting and farmland. No wonder it was so popular back in the 30s as it is today. And then as we climbed higher into the mountains, you can already see the elevation and the mountains in the distance, and we'll have lots more pictures of that in just a second. Of course, we traveled to this area to visit the Eagle's Nest, which was a gift from the Nazi Party to Hitler on his 50th birthday, even though he was only there like twice. You can see it there from the parking lot and then on high, and then you enter it through a tunnel, a man-made tunnel, obviously, that goes to an elevator that takes you all the way to the top of the mountain. It's fairly interesting, and this is all original architecture. You can see also some graffiti on the doors as we go through them. You get to the elevator through this tunnel, and there's the main glass doors there with the graffiti on them. This is original Nazi architecture. The floor is wet because you're cutting into a mountainside here. It's probably 100 yards long. At the end of the war, pretty much everything was looted. The door handles, the light fixtures, everything, but they tried to reproduce them as closely and as accurately as possible to what was originally there. I was unable to film inside of the elevator itself. It's a brass-lined elevator. They said no photography, even though I've gone online now and I see others who have. But this is that's a picture back at the beginning from the start of the tunnel. And then we're entering into the vestibule, the waiting room for the elevator, which is pretty cool architecture here. Originally, this would have had green leather sofas surrounding the walls. Of course, those were all looted and they've been replaced with benches. And I'm sorry about the camera angles here, but there was a lot of people there that day, a lot of people. And I didn't want to stick the camera right in their faces, so I put it on an extension rod, and that's why it kind of goes up and down and kind of weird. But the dome in this room was really amazing architecture, and you're probably 150 meters into the granite underground right now. And you're about to get on the elevator and go upstairs to the Eagle's Nest itself. This is the hallway that greets you as soon as you get off the elevators. Of course, the restrooms are to the right. Those are the original positions of the restrooms, although they've been modernized. And then there's a kitchen that you can see there. On the other side of this is that kitchen you see there, and then the smaller dining room. Again, reproduction light fixtures. The paneling is original. None of the furniture is original. All the furniture has been replaced and vandalized by the troops, or taken as souvenirs by the troops after the war. And now we're walking into the main room, the grand parlor, they called it. It's now obviously a dining room, but it would have had leisure furniture in there originally. Of course, the ceiling is original, the stone is original, but the light fixtures are all replacements. Moving on around to the right, you can see the red marble, granite, I think it's red marble, fireplace that was a gift from Mussolini to Hitler. It's been chipped quite a bit, where soldiers would come along and knock a chip off to take home as a souvenir. So it's kind of in rough shape, but it was too big to totally be moved by itself. And the fire back there is original as well. 1938 it says, which is when the structure was built. Now we're moving into a smaller dining room, which was known as Eva Braun's dining room, even though it was not her specific dining room. But the beautiful paneling here is original. The light fixtures are not. You can see a little layout of how it was more of a casual dining room than anything, with some beautiful scenery out the windows that you'll see here in just a second. This is literally just a teaser, and it's Lake Wannsee there in the future, where Eva Braun was known to frolic and swim with her friends. You can look up some of her videos that she made down there. And yes, friends, that is snow on the mountains in June. Again, we are looking through glass here, so this is a teaser of what you're going to see once I get back up behind the structure And off in the distance, lo and behold, another house that's just as high. Really beautiful scenery out here. We moved from this room over into the sun porch. Originally, these glass windows would have not been there. It would have been open, and they had lounge chairs here, so the original occupants could take the sun and the fresh air. Again, a beautiful, beautiful view out there. But it's very crowded the day we were there. It's kind of a shame. I couldn't get real good photography, but it was just so crowded. And now we're on the opposite side of the building. This is the way you go down. I actually walked down from here down to the parking lot where we were from the first shot. But I wanted to just pause here for a second and show you the other side of the valleys. And we're now looking into Austria. And we're actually in Austria. We're looking toward Salzburg, Austria, which is over those distant hills there. That's not an eagle that flew by. It was a family of ravens that lives up there. So I climbed higher up on the mountain behind the house. You can see the umbrellas where tourists can dine there. And there's Huckleberry just to prove that I was actually there. Whoopee. Turning around, this is what you see behind where the film was shot. And yes, again, that's snow. Edelweiss on the cross there, which grows at high altitudes, a sign of bravery for the Germans. And then some poignant stone pillars left by tourists in memorial. And then I'm just going to be quiet and let the scenery speak for itself because it is really beautiful up there. It's something I have never experienced before. That is Obersalzberg down in the valley there, and that's probably 15 miles away. Really good clear day like this, you can see a long way in the distance. This is looking down the opposite side of the mountain, again, more toward Salzburg. You can see how steep it is. We're literally up on the edge of a cliff all the way through this. It's amazing scenery. A little bit better shot of the back of the house of the building. And then this is the front of the house, technically. I was traveling downhill, leaving the site, turned around and made that shot. And in the middle of all this that created misery, there's always beauty. There are bees everywhere in Europe because they don't use weed killer. And this is the walk down. Absolutely beautiful scenery. And turning around and continuing downhill from where I just was. Interesting pine tree there growing out of the rocks. And then looking down, notice there's no handrail. And that is straight down about 300 or 400 feet to the roadway down there. Pretty spooky stuff. I did make it downhill though. This is the Platterhof, or what remains of the Platterhof, which had been set up as a luxury hotel for visitors to Hitler when he was on the mountain. And that's what's left of it. And this is a central dining hall. That's what's left of it. There are other buildings around, a remainder of buildings. You can see one here that's actually been modernized, and then the graffiti from World War II there. And yet another obligatory food picture. Notice the common theme here. And it did not come from McDonald's, which is right next door to the hotel where I stayed. But I wanted to point this out because of the really neat architecture there. The words over the doorway to the right say entrance, and that's original. They just built the McDonald's again. This fountain is a central Marienplatz fountain. You're going to see some trash on the ground, which is highly unusual for Germany, but this was Sunday morning after all the partying events of the Pride weekend culmination festivities, and they totally trashed the streets. But the Germans at 8 o'clock were already out there cleaning things up, and in 2 hours it was pristine. You couldn't even tell the party was happening. But that's a really pretty fountain with lots of architecture, lots of sculptures built into the base of it. Marienplatz again, that's the new Rathaus, which is the new town hall, and the Glockenspiel. So this has got some pretty songs that play, bells and that sort of thing. It's interesting to watch. I'll just let you listen to that for a minute. And this is the backside of the old Rathaus. To the left is St. Peter's there. This is right near where my hotel was on Tall Street, or Tallstrasse as they call it there. That building is old, and that was actually where the Munich Busch was formed, was in that big hall right above the arches there. Just to the left as you walk up the street, the Lederhosen vendor. This was Sunday morning, so he was not open. I tried to get the best shots I could. Interesting. You see a lot of the locals wearing these outfits, but I would say that when we were there, probably 70% of the visitors were tourists. There are not many locals that I could see around. Some, not many. Admittedly, it was a weekend, so you wouldn't expect to see a lot of locals except working in the businesses, but walking to and for, I didn't see many locals at all. And this is an unused side door to St. Peter's Church. We're going to go in that second door there in just a second, and we'll show you what the inside of this church looks like. It's absolutely beautiful. And Marienplatz is just on the other side of that old town hall, but the architecture, everywhere you turn, the architecture is amazing. It's incredible to me that this town was leveled during the war, and now it's been rebuilt. Now we're moving a few blocks north, and this is the Munich residence, which is the home of the summer home of the Bavarian kings. Massive museum now. Takes a long time to go through it. The right side is a former Hall of Justice, which is now a theater. but really pretty architecture there as well. And we're going to show you some of the interior courtyards of the Munich residence here in just a second. The cello you hear in the background is a street player just to my left as I was filming this, and I did tip her because I told her she was going to be in the video. I think she's playing Brahms, but she was a concert cellist and excellent quality. And I hope you can see hear some of it, and it comes through good. And this is the main interior courtyard of the Munich residence, where they would have had their events and their parties. Huge building. Another one that's still being used for, in this case, it looks like it's being set up for a wedding, which is kind of cool. And then there's a church attached to it. You can see the bullet holes in the front of the church. The thing about Munich, you can go around the block and you'll find these little unique plazas, like little unique pocket parks, I guess you could say it is. And they're really cool. This is one right here. It was 95 degrees the day I was walking around shooting this, so there's not a whole lot of people that are just standing around, but you can see plenty. And then right outside this little park is this fountain. I don't know if you can see it, but there's a guy standing in the fountain reading the newspaper underneath the shade trying to cool off. Odenplatz. This is the street that Hitler and his henchmen marched down during the Munich Putsch, where they tried to take over the Bavarian government. They were heading to my right, from my left to my right. And then the Germans set up a monument down there, and those who didn't want to give the Nazis salute when they walked through it, they traveled through this alleyway, and this was called Schurker's Alley, and so these little bronze pavers were laid there to commemorate that. Odenplatz itself was closed off because that's where they had the main concert, and they had scaffolding covering the main temple, if you will. It was a soldiers' martyrs temple. They had most of that covered up where you couldn't really see it, but I did go down this alley and come out the other side, and there's a beautiful church that faces Odenplatz Plaza. Shifting back to another part of town, that's actually the Hofbrau House on the right, which is a total tourist trap. If you ever go to Munich, don't bother going there. Every restaurant in town has street seating, and in this particular situation, there was this group of men sitting there under the blue umbrellas just to the right. Got a close-up of them here, and they had the big mustaches, the lederhosen on, and they were having a beer drinking, I don't say a contest, but a beer drinking club, and they were meeting there and having fun. Back to Marienplatz. This is the side of the new Rathaus where the Glockenspiel is, to my right, around the front. This is the side, and as our guide said, this is the German interpretation of Gothic architecture. This is not really Gothic architecture, even though this original structure was built in 1874, but this is the German interpretation of it, so it's a bit exaggerated, is the way he phrased it. And this is St. Peter's Church. I think it's St. Peter's. Anyway, it's a beautiful church right there on Tall Street. I went in. They were actually conducting mass, so I couldn't really get good shots of the inside because I wanted to be respectful. But I just want to take a minute and look at this gorgeous, absolutely stunning architecture inside.
Jesus Christus auf die Fürstenwort deiner Mutter und größte alle, die einen schweren geschichtlichen Schicksalsschlag erlitten haben. Wir bitten dich, erhöre uns. Maria hat mit den Jüngern um die geistige Einheit und des Friedens gebetet. Herr Jesus Christus, auf die Fürsprache deiner Mutter bestärke die Bemühungen aller, die nach Frieden und Versöhnung suchen.
And right around the corner was this building with some wonderful architectural features. And then I know this is St. Peter's Church coming up on the left. The church I was just in is over there to the right. And then panning around to the left on the what we would call the second floor, but the Europeans would call it the first floor, is a restaurant. It's now an Italian restaurant, but it is the restaurant where Goering first met Hitler. Really interesting history here that people around have no idea what's going on there. But that was a big meeting that day. The side of St. Peter's, you can see the tombstones of the prominent people who were all buried in the crypts below the church. They put their tombstones on the side like this to commemorate them. And just to the left of that door ahead, you can access the bell tower, which I did, and this is the climb up. Kind of cozy. Very old church, early 1800s. Some of the steps obviously have been replaced, but you can see how worn they are from the many footfalls that have gone up and down them. And these are oak steps, so it takes a lot of walking to wear down a piece of wood like that. And when you get to the top, there's a catwalk that goes all the way around the bell tower. And you can see Munich. It's flat as a pancake. The modern buildings off in the distance, obviously rebuilt after the war. That's where most of the business matters are taken care of. And then the old city in the center, that is Fraukirch, which is Church of Our Mother, basically, is what that means. We're going to go inside that one here in just a minute. It's a beautiful church inside as well. Off in the distance there, you can see the Olympic Tower. There's the Glockenspiel in Marienplatz and New Rathaus. When they built it back after the bombings, they built it back in the original architectural styles, which makes it really interesting. There's the main market down there. I can't pronounce it. I want to say Victal Market, but it's lots of vendors, fresh produce, some beer gardens. Picked up some tea for my wife there and a teacup. If I'm not mistaken, that cluster of buildings way off in the distance there is the BMW headquarters. But you can see Old Rathaus right there below you in the center. So we're coming back around the building, coming back around the church tower, and we'll soon be facing the new Rathaus. The church that you see right there to the left at the bottom is the one that we were in, where they were having Mass. A lot of redundancy here, but I'm trying to cover as much as I can in a little bit of time. And traveling down was a little bit more interesting than traveling up. Lots of stairs. I think there's something like 500 plus stairs to go up here. You come down, these are stone steps. You can see how worn they are. And if you're claustrophobic, you probably don't want to do this. The first up close look at Frau Church, our mother church, and then the little plaza out front. Beautiful little fountain out there. You can kind of see now we're up close how massive this church is. In case you haven't noticed by now, Munich has a lot of churches. Although with that said, I definitely would not call it a religious city. Most of them are architectural features as opposed to being active churches, I believe, and depend heavily on tourism. You could actually go up into these towers as well, but I was tired of climbing steps that day, so I didn't do that. This is a side door to the same church. And then going through the front door, this is what you see, the devil's footprint. You can look that up. He stomped his foot because they cheated him into believing they were building something else. They were actually building a church, and then the absolutely gorgeous crucifix that hangs in the middle of the church itself. Up close shots of that. You can see the arches above. It is probably 2 times life size to give you a perspective on the size here. I spent a lot of time just in contemplation in front of this crucifix. And then this is a tomb that's inside the church, at the back of the church. Confessionally, I haven't researched whose tomb it is, but I'm sure it was probably somebody like King Ludwig, someone of very important prominence in the Bavarian monarchy. I know that we're going to, in a minute, see a statue of King Ludwig and just some more street scenes coming up.
Das sind die Birkenstoffe.
And wandering around town, this is the original police station. I'm sure it had some, was employed by the Nazis as well, because it's a very secure installation, and it appears to me to also have some jail cells in it. Certainly heavily fortified around with the lions over the gate, and beautiful architecture around the door though. And that's about all there is for this video. I said there was only going to be 3. I actually could not get it all in, so there will be a 4th. But thank you for watching, and be sure and subscribe to the channel so that you don't miss number 4. We're going to have a little fun. Thanks for watching.